Sometimes the most innocent face can hide the most unfathomable darkness. Look at her eyes. Look at the child in this photograph and ask yourself, what could possibly be happening inside a 9-year-old mind that terrifies even the wisest doctors? This photograph was taken in 1871 at Danvers State Hospital in Massachusetts. The little girl you see is Catherine Doyle, only 9 years old. But look closely at her picture. Look at her eyes, the stiffness of her body, the blank yet intense expression that doesn't belong on the face of a child. Catherine Doyle confused everything doctors of the Victorian era believed about the human mind. Her case still cannot be explained, even after more than 150 years. The photograph you're seeing captured one of the most haunting and unexplainable medical mysteries of the 19th century. What happened to Catherine Doyle defies modern medicine. It defies psychology, and perhaps it can never be completely understood. The story you're about to hear isn't an ordinary medical case. It's something that challenges our ideas about reality itself. To truly understand what happened to Catherine, we need to step back in time to the year 1871. America was still healing from the deep wounds left by the Civil War that had ended just 6 years earlier. Boston was a city in the middle of change, filled with Irish immigrants running from hunger and poverty, searching for hope in a new land. Psychiatry was still in its cruel and primitive beginnings. Mental asylums were dark and lonely places where those considered insane were hidden away from the world. There was no real knowledge about mental illness, child psychology, or emotional trauma. Anyone who didn't fit into the rules of society was locked up and forgotten. Danvers State Hospital, the place where Catherine would spend her last years, was one of these grim institutions. It was built on land that once held Salem farms, grounds already heavy with dark history. The hospital carried not only the failures of early medicine, but also the lingering shadows of America's own troubled past. The long corridors of that place had witnessed treatments that today would be seen as pure torture: ice-cold baths, iron restraints, complete sensory isolation, and horrifying medical experiments. It was in this bleak and limited environment that Catherine Doyle became one of the most documented and unsettling psychiatric cases of the 19th century. And it's important to remember that the doctors of that time, even if they meant well, simply didn't have the tools or the understanding to make sense of what they saw. Catherine Doyle was born on March 15, 1862, in the heart of Boston. Her parents, Patrick and Mary Doyle, were Irish immigrants who had come to America chasing a better life. Patrick worked as a longshoreman at Boston's busy harbor, loading and unloading cargo from ships that brought goods from all over the world. Mary worked as a housemaid in the grand homes of Beacon Hill, cleaning and cooking for wealthy families. The Doyle family lived in a tiny 2-room apartment in Boston's North End, a neighborhood mostly filled with Irish immigrants. The living conditions were rough, but the community was close-knit, tied together by their Catholic faith and their shared struggle. Catherine grew up hearing the Irish language spoken by older neighbors, smelling fresh bread from local bakeries, and listening to old folk tales told by her grandmother about their homeland. From what the family records and church documents say, Catherine was a completely normal little girl during her first 7 years. She was cheerful, curious, and bright for her age, but nothing out of the ordinary. She played with handmade rag dolls, helped her mother with small chores, and went to Sunday Mass at St. Leonard's Church, where she learned her basic prayers in Latin. Her teachers at the small parish school described her as a good student, though not unusually gifted. She learned to read and write at a normal speed, enjoyed Bible stories, and got along well with other children. Nothing in her personality or growth suggested what was about to happen. Mary Doyle would later tell doctors that Catherine had always been her gentle little girl, a child who loved helping in the kitchen and always worried about her father coming home safely from work. Patrick called her the light of our home, saying she brought laughter and peace into a life otherwise filled with hardship. But in September 1869, everything changed, so suddenly, so completely, that even today researchers still argue about what truly happened to her. On the morning of September 14, 1869, a Tuesday Mary Doyle would never forget, Catherine woke up different. Physically, she looked the same, a small 7-year-old with a freckled face and curly brown hair. But something deep inside her had shifted, something no one could explain. The first signs were small. Catherine woke up late, which was unusual for her. When she finally came down for breakfast, she moved slowly, as if every step was measured and intentional. More unsettling still, she didn't greet her parents the way she always did. No cheerful, "Good morning, Mommy," no bright smile. She simply sat down at the table and stared at them with an expression that Mary would later describe as empty but ancient. When her mother asked if she was feeling unwell, Catherine replied, but her voice was different. It wasn't dramatic, but it carried a rough, older tone, as though it came from someone far beyond her years. Over the next weeks, her transformation grew impossible to deny. Catherine started showing knowledge no child her age could have known. During dinner, she made strange comments about historical events with an almost frightening precision. She talked about the American Revolution as if she had lived through it, mentioning battles and details that weren't taught in her little parish school. Even more bizarrely, she began to discuss ancient Greek philosophy, quoting Aristotle and Plato, not as if repeating memorized lines, but as someone who actually understood what they meant. When her father, stunned, asked where she had learned these things, Catherine simply smiled, a smile that frightened her parents, and said she had always known them. Her knowledge of religion also changed. She began reciting entire sections of the Bible in Latin, not just the simple prayers she had learned at church. She could quote obscure Old Testament passages that even priests had to look up. Father O'Brien from St. Leonard's Church tested her, only to find himself speechless when the little girl debated complex theology like a trained scholar. But the most disturbing thing wasn't her strange knowledge. It was how she seemed to know private things about people around her. She began revealing secrets no one had ever told her, affairs between married couples, hidden debts, and moral failings of neighbors. She mentioned these things casually, as if discussing the weather. Soon her fascination took a darker turn. Catherine started asking questions about death, gruesome, specific questions. She wanted to know about executions, torture devices, and the ways people died in ancient times. She described the tools used by the Spanish Inquisition, spoke about mummification in Egypt, and listed poisons used in medieval Europe. What terrified her parents most was how her eyes would light up when she spoke of suffering. There was joy in her expression, something twisted, something deeply wrong. Her behavior toward her own body grew frightening. She began hurting herself, scratching her arms until they bled, biting her lips until they split, banging her head against the wall. But she didn't cry or show pain. Instead, she seemed calm, almost entranced, as if she drew some strange comfort from it. Her mother tried desperately to stop her, but Catherine always found new ways. She would use nails sticking from the wall, shards of broken glass, even kitchen tools to harm herself. When asked why she did it, she would reply in her strange, cold tone that she felt like it, or worse, that something told her to. Animals also reacted differently to her. Once gentle with cats and dogs, Catherine now seemed to frighten them. Dogs would bark wildly when she came near, cats would hiss and run, and even birds avoided flying close to her. When Mary asked her why animals behaved so strangely, Catherine gave a chilling answer with that same unsettling smile. "They know what I am now, Mommy. They're smarter than you." As the months went by, Catherine's condition only deepened. The child who had once been loving and sweet had become something entirely different, something no doctor, priest, or parent could understand. The Doyle family lived in terror, unsure whether their daughter was sick, possessed, or something far beyond either explanation. She began showing physical abilities that should have been impossible for a child of her age and size. The first noticeable sign was her unusual strength. Catherine, who had always been a small, ordinary girl, suddenly could break things with startling ease. During a fit of anger in December 1869, she snapped a solid oak chair in half using just her hands. Patrick, who worked with heavy wood at the port every day, examined the broken chair and was bewildered. The wood had been broken in a way that would require enormous force, far beyond what any child could exert. On another occasion, Catherine pressed her fingers so hard into the family's wooden kitchen table that she left permanent impressions. These weren't just shallow scratches, but deep marks, as if her small fingers carried the strength and hardness of metal tools. Mary tried to sand the marks away, but they remained stubbornly, serving as a disturbing reminder of her daughter's unexplained power. Catherine also displayed an extraordinary resistance to physical strain. She could remain in uncomfortable positions for hours without showing any signs of fatigue or discomfort. Mary once found her standing in the center of the living room at 2 a.m., completely motionless, staring fixedly at the wall. When Mary asked how long she had been like that, Catherine said she hadn't moved since dinner, more than 6 hours earlier. Her resistance to cold was especially remarkable. During Boston's harsh winter of 1869 to 1870, she often went outside wearing far less clothing than necessary, apparently unaffected by temperatures that left others shivering. On one memorable occasion, Patrick discovered her sleeping in the snow-covered backyard in nothing but her nightgown, showing no signs of hypothermia or discomfort. But perhaps the most unsettling physical change was in Catherine's eyes. Neighbors and family acquaintances began noting something unusual about her gaze. They described her eyes as hypnotic, almost predatory. People who stared at Catherine for a long time reported dizziness, headaches, and an inexplicable sense of fear. Mary noticed her daughter's eyes sometimes changed color depending on light or mood. Normally brown, they occasionally appeared nearly black, especially during her most alarming episodes. On several occasions, Mary swore she could see other shapes moving deep within Catherine's pupils, as if something else were looking through her eyes. As Catherine's behavior grew more strange and frightening, Patrick and Mary Doyle did what any desperate parents would. They sought help wherever they could. Being devout Catholics, their first choice was the church. Father Timothy O'Brien of St. Leonard's Church had known Catherine since she was born. He had baptized her, guided her first communion, and had always thought of her as one of the sweetest children in his parish. When the Doyles approached him for help, he initially struggled to believe their accounts. Surely, he thought, this was a challenging phase many children go through, amplified by worried parents' imaginations. His view changed quickly when he met Catherine personally. During a pastoral visit to the Doyle home in January 1870, he attempted to speak with her about simple religious topics. To his astonishment, Catherine not only displayed extraordinary knowledge of theology, but also began questioning core aspects of Catholic doctrine with sophisticated reasoning he rarely encountered, even among advanced seminarians. Even more unsettling, she knew intimate details about the priest's personal life that he had never shared with anyone. She spoke of sins from his past, hidden doubts about his faith, and specific events from his childhood in a small Irish town. When Father O'Brien, shaken, asked how she knew these things, Catherine simply smiled and said she knew many things about many people. Convinced that he was dealing with something beyond ordinary medical explanation, Father O'Brien decided to attempt an exorcism. The ritual took place at the Doyle home on a February night in 1870, with only the family and an elderly deacon present. What occurred during that ceremony was so disturbing that Father O'Brien never spoke publicly of it, writing only in his private diaries, discovered decades later that it had been the most terrifying experience of his priestly life. During the exorcism, Catherine did not respond in the ways religious manuals described for possessed individuals. She showed no pain, did not thrash, scream, or blaspheme. Instead, she laughed, a loud, echoing laugh that seemed to come from multiple voices at once. Then, to the priest's horror, she began reciting the exorcism ritual alongside him, word for word in perfect Latin, anticipating every line before he spoke it. After the failed exorcism, the Doyles turned to medicine, hoping science could provide answers that religion could not. They consulted Dr. Henry Morrison, one of the few Boston doctors specializing in mental disorders who had studied in Europe, where more advanced psychiatric methods were being developed. Dr. Morrison was known for his meticulous approach and detailed documentation of clinical cases. Initially, he approached Catherine's situation with professional skepticism, assuming he was dealing with a highly intelligent child who might have suffered psychological trauma. This perspective shifted dramatically during his first sessions with her. Over 2 intensive weeks in February and March 1870, he carefully examined Catherine, documenting every aspect of her behavior and abilities. His reports, preserved in Boston's historical medical archives, remain profoundly disturbing. Morrison noted Catherine's intelligence was far above average, but largely directed toward morbid and unsettling topics. She could discuss human anatomy with a precision comparable to medical students, describe rare diseases in detail, and even propose medical treatments at the cutting edge of contemporary medicine. During their sessions, Catherine constantly drew and wrote, but her creations were unlike anything typical for children her age. She produced accurate anatomical illustrations, depictions of death and decay, and human figures in extreme pain. Her drawings were technically precise, far beyond what a child without formal training could achieve. Dr. Morrison was particularly fascinated by Catherine's writings. She wrote fluently in several languages she had never formally studied, including Latin, ancient Greek, and rudimentary Egyptian hieroglyphs. When asked where she had learned these languages, she simply said the words came to her when she needed to use them. Most disturbing of all were Catherine's eyes. In his reports, Dr. Morrison wrote at length about the unexplainable sensation he felt when looking into them, describing a feeling as if they were staring not just at him, but through him, revealing truths and secrets no ordinary child could possibly know. Her gaze was magnetic and terrifying, compelling attention even when he tried to look away. Over time, he observed that her eyes seemed to shift in color and intensity depending on her mood, sometimes darkening to an almost black shade during episodes that were particularly alarming. The combination of her extraordinary strength, resistance to physical stress, deep knowledge, artistic mastery, and the unnerving power of her gaze convinced Dr. Morrison that Catherine was no ordinary child. He documented everything meticulously, knowing that history might one day seek to understand the inexplicable events he had witnessed firsthand. No explanation in science or theology seemed sufficient. Catherine Doyle had become a phenomenon that defied human understanding, leaving all who observed her with a mixture of fear, awe, and deep, unsettling curiosity. He described the experience as profoundly unsettling, likening it to the sensation of being examined by an intelligence far older and far more experienced than one should expect in someone so young. The doctor also noted several unusual physical phenomena during his evaluations. Catherine's body temperature consistently ran lower than normal, yet she exhibited no signs of hypothermia. Her pulse was unusually slow, though steady. More strangely, plants in the doctor's office began to wilt when Catherine remained in the room for extended periods, even though all other environmental factors stayed the same. The event that finally forced Catherine's admission to Danvers Hospital took place on a bitterly cold night in February of 1870. It was a moment so strange and unexplainable that even the most skeptical observers were convinced she required immediate specialized care. Patrick Doyle awoke at 3 in the morning with an unsettling sense that something was terribly wrong. The house was eerily silent, and the air seemed particularly frigid, even for the harsh Boston winter. Rising to check on his family, he discovered Catherine was not in her bed. After searching the house thoroughly without finding her, Patrick glanced out the kitchen window and saw a small figure standing in the snow-covered yard. Catherine stood at the center of the yard, completely still, wearing only a thin white cotton nightgown. A snowstorm had begun during the night, and her body was already dusted with snow. What shocked Patrick most was her posture. She was standing with her arms lifted toward the sky, as though welcoming the storm, her head tilted back, staring directly into the night sky, completely unmoved by the fierce wind and heavy snow. Patrick ran out, fearing she might be suffering from severe hypothermia or worse. Yet when he reached her, he found, to his astonishment, that although she had been in the storm for hours, Catherine showed no signs of discomfort. She was not shivering. Her skin was ice cold to the touch, yet she breathed normally and appeared fully conscious. As Patrick tried to lead her inside, Catherine slowly turned her head to look at him. What he saw would haunt him forever. Her eyes were completely black, not merely dilated pupils, but entirely dark, as if both iris and sclera had vanished. When she spoke, her voice resonated in a way that seemed to emerge not just from her mouth but from the very air around her. She fixed her gaze on Patrick with those impossible eyes and said words he would repeat to doctors for the rest of his life. "The stars are almost aligned, Father, and when they meet in the correct position, you will finally understand that I never really existed. I was only preparation for something far greater." The following morning, after a sleepless night and hours of agonizing discussion involving Patrick, Mary, Father O'Brien, and Dr. Morrison, the hardest decision of the Doyle family's life was made. Catherine would be admitted to Danvers State Hospital. The decision weighed heavily on all involved. Everyone recognized they were confronting something entirely beyond human comprehension. Father O'Brien admitted that his spiritual resources were insufficient. Dr. Morrison confessed he had never encountered a case like this and required the full infrastructure and expertise of a specialized institution to even hope to understand her condition. For Patrick and Mary, giving their only daughter over to medical authorities was emotionally devastating. Yet they understood that Catherine posed a potential danger not only to herself, but possibly to others. Her demonstrations of extraordinary strength, impossible knowledge, and increasingly alarming behavior had created an unsustainable situation. Danvers Hospital was chosen because it was among New England's most advanced facilities for mental health care. Under Dr. Elias Hartwell, the hospital employed some of the latest European psychiatric techniques and had the resources to document medical cases extensively. On the morning of March 15, 1870, exactly 1 year after her 8th birthday, Catherine was transported from her Boston home to Danvers. She complied entirely with the process, showing a strange awareness of the situation far beyond her years. During the carriage ride, she remained mostly silent, gazing out the window with that ancient, calculating expression that had become her signature. Only once did she speak, addressing Dr. Morrison, who accompanied her. "You're going to try to photograph me, aren't you, Doctor? I am curious to see what your camera can capture." Danvers State Hospital was an imposing, intimidating institution built in the Gothic Revival style that dominated the era's architecture. Situated on hills offering sweeping views of the Massachusetts countryside, the main building stretched over a kilometer, its pointed towers and arched windows more reminiscent of a medieval fortress than a modern hospital. The institution was founded on the principles of so-called moral treatment, a psychiatric philosophy that promised recovery through structured routine, therapeutic work, and a controlled environment. In theory, it was a revolutionary and humane approach. In practice, Danvers had become a repository for individuals society deemed incurable or too dangerous to live freely. By March 1870, the hospital housed over 600 patients in conditions that today would be considered appalling. Long, dark corridors echoed with unsettling sounds, screams from patients in crisis, metallic clinks of keys and chains, and the constant murmur of incoherent conversations. The sharp scent of disinfectant fought, largely unsuccessfully, against odors of sweat, urine, and human suffering. Dr. Elias Hartwell, the hospital's chief physician, was a 52-year-old man who had devoted his life to studying mental illness. A Harvard graduate who had studied briefly in Paris under some of Europe's leading psychiatrists, Hartwell considered himself a progressive scientist determined to apply strict observation and documentation to advance knowledge about the human mind. When Catherine was brought to his office for an initial examination, Hartwell expected to encounter a typical case of childhood hysteria, or perhaps a developmental disorder. He had read Dr. Morrison's reports but maintained a professional skepticism about the more extraordinary claims. That skepticism disappeared within minutes of meeting Catherine. When she entered the office, still wearing the simple dress from the Boston journey and accompanied by a nurse, she displayed none of the anxiety, confusion, or fear typical of new patients, particularly children. Instead, she scanned the room with calculating eyes, seeming to assess not just the surroundings, but Hartwell himself. Before he could begin his standard examination, Catherine astonished him by recounting specific details about 3 patients who had recently died. She knew their full names, exact dates of death, and, most alarmingly, intimate circumstances of their passing, information contained only in confidential files. Even more disturbing, Catherine revealed personal secrets about Hartwell himself, events from his childhood, controversial professional choices, and even private marital issues he had never shared. When he asked how she knew such things, Catherine smiled with that cold, unnerving smile and said she had ways of knowing things about interesting people. Initially, Catherine was placed in the hospital's pediatric ward, a relatively small section housing about 20 children with various mental disorders. The ward was overseen by Sister Margaret O'Connell, an Irish nun with over 15 years' experience in managing troubled children. Catherine's presence soon proved challenging, though not for reasons the staff anticipated. She did not show aggression toward the other children, did not create overt disturbances, and generally followed the basic rules of the institution. The problem Catherine presented was subtle, and in many ways far more disturbing than any overtly aggressive behavior. From the moment she arrived, she seemed to exert a strange and unexplainable influence over the other children in the ward. Within just a week, 3 children who had previously been considered stable began showing completely new and troubling behaviors. They withdrew from the usual recreational activities, stopped responding normally to questions from medical staff, and spent long hours sitting in silence, staring fixedly at certain points on the walls, as though they were seeing something invisible to adults. Our 6-year-old patient, Emma Sullivan, who had been admitted for recurring night terrors following the traumatic death of her parents in a carriage accident, began talking obsessively about a shadowy figure she claimed was always present in the ward. Emma described this figure with remarkable consistency and specificity. a very tall woman dressed entirely in black, with long dark hair that seemed to move independently of any wind, and eyes that she described as hollow dark voids where light should be. Most unsettling was that all the children who began exhibiting these strange behaviors described exactly the same figure, down to the same height, the same physical characteristics, and the same clothing, as if they were all witnessing the same invisible presence, something unseen by adults yet vividly real to them. Sister Margaret initially tried to dismiss these claims as collective imagination or simple childhood hysteria, but her concern deepened when she realized the children were demonstrating knowledge they had no conceivable way of acquiring. They spoke of events from Catherine's life before she had arrived at the hospital, recalled specific conversations she had with her parents, and even described aspects of the Doyle family house in Boston, a place none of them had ever visited. A 9-year-old boy, Timothy Chen, the son of Chinese immigrants admitted for selective mutism, suddenly began speaking fluently about Catherine's childhood in Ireland, recalling stories of relatives who had died before she was even born. How could Timothy, or any of the other children, have known these intimate details? The situation became even more alarming when the children began behaving in ways that suggested coordinated instructions from an unseen source. They moved through the ward in precise formations, sat in exact geometric patterns during meals, and occasionally spoke in unison, reciting words in languages none of them had formally studied. Dr. Hartwell, observing these developments with growing unease, began to suspect that Catherine was somehow influencing the other children in ways that defied conventional understanding. His careful notes recorded behavioral patterns that could not be explained by any known psychological theory. After 6 weeks of detailed observation, Dr. Hartwell decided to transfer Catherine to a solitary room in the hospital's isolation wing. This decision was not prompted by violent or disruptive actions on her part, but rather by the inexplicable effect she had on the other children and the need to study her under more controlled conditions. The isolation room was situated on the 3rd floor of the East Wing, away from the main activity areas. It was a small, bare cell of about 3 by 4 meters, containing only an iron bed with a thin mattress, a wooden table, a simple chair, and a metal bucket for basic needs. A single barred window allowed a small amount of light to filter in. This transfer marked the beginning of a more intensive stage of observation and experimentation. Dr. Hartwell was determined to understand Catherine's condition and, if possible, document it in a way that might provide groundbreaking insights into rare mental phenomena. Daily therapy sessions with Catherine quickly became unusual. Instead of responding passively to questions as most children would, she often steered the conversation herself, directing it toward topics that made Dr. Hartwell deeply uncomfortable. She asked probing questions about his personal life, professional choices, hidden fears, and deepest vulnerabilities. Catherine displayed a chilling ability to identify psychological weaknesses and exploit them with precise skill. During one session in May 1870, she confronted Dr. Hartwell about a traumatic childhood event he had never shared with anyone: the accidental drowning of a girl named Sarah Mitchell when they were both 12. Catherine recounted the incident in exacting detail, including the weather that day, the precise words exchanged, and the emotions of guilt and cowardice that had haunted Hartwell ever since. More disturbing than her knowledge of this secret was the way she used it. She did not merely reveal facts, she wielded them as tools to manipulate the emotions of those around her. Through these sessions, she caused Hartwell to question both his professional competence and his personal sanity. Hartwell also documented other extraordinary phenomena associated with Catherine. The temperature in her room was consistently 4 to 6 degrees Celsius lower than the rest of the hospital, even when the heating system functioned normally and all other conditions were unchanged. Plants placed near her window withered rapidly despite proper care. Several staff members reported strange and unsettling sensations while in her vicinity. Nurses experienced severe headaches, sudden nausea, and vivid nightmares that appeared only after working near her section. 2 guards requested reassignment after reporting persistent feelings of being watched, even when Catherine was asleep. Throughout the summer and fall of 1870, Dr. Hartwell initiated an experimental program with Catherine that went well beyond the standard medical practices of the time. He saw her as a unique opportunity to expand understanding of the human mind and its hidden potential. The experiments included extensive evaluations of memory, language, general knowledge, and cognitive abilities. Catherine was subjected to assessments typically reserved for highly educated adults, including complex logic problems, philosophical reasoning, and historical analysis. She repeatedly demonstrated capacities far exceeding those expected of a child her age and education level. Hartwell also tested her access to information that should have been impossible for her to know. She was shown photographs of strangers, obscure historical documents, and even texts in dead languages. In every instance, Catherine displayed detailed familiarity with the material, providing facts she could not have learned through ordinary means. One striking experiment involved showing Catherine a photograph of a man who had died 10 years earlier in a distant city. Without any prior context, she correctly identified his full name, his family, the cause of death, and even personal habits and character traits. Hartwell later confirmed that all her details were accurate. Catherine also began displaying what Hartwell described as premonitory abilities, predicting future events with uncanny precision. She foretold the deaths of 3 patients in the hospital, specifying not only the timing but also the circumstances, all of which proved true. Despite her increasing mental and seemingly supernatural abilities, Catherine's physical health began to decline during the winter of 1870-1871. The deterioration did not follow conventional medical patterns, but seemed linked to the strange phenomena she exhibited. She lost weight rapidly despite maintaining a normal appetite. Her skin became pale and almost translucent, with blue veins clearly visible. Her hair darkened and thickened unnaturally, resembling fur more than human hair. Even more alarming were periods of complete physical rigidity that lasted for hours, during which she remained motionless like a statue. Her breathing and heartbeat continued normally, but she did not blink, move, or respond to anyone speaking to her. Hartwell observed that these episodes coincided with the most intense supernatural events. Room temperatures dropped sharply, objects moved inexplicably, and staff reported dizziness, nausea, and the sense of an unseen presence. During these episodes, Catherine sometimes spoke, but her voice carried an unmistakable quality, markedly different from her usual tone, as though another presence spoke through her. Sometimes she spoke with multiple voices at the same time, producing a harmonic effect that was almost impossible to follow and left listeners feeling disoriented. At other moments, her voice took on tones and inflections that were unmistakably adult, as if other personalities were speaking through her. During these unusual episodes, Catherine revealed even more precise and seemingly impossible information about people and events. She described historical incidents in exact detail that had occurred long before her birth, spoke about individuals who had passed away decades earlier, as if she had known them personally, and even predicted future events with uncanny accuracy. Her predictions during this period were especially precise and often unsettling. She foretold the exact deaths of prominent politicians, natural disasters with accurate dates and locations, and even personal events affecting members of the hospital staff. Every prediction came to pass exactly as she had described. In May 1871, after over a year of observing Catherine, Dr. Hartwell made a decision that would change forever the way her case was understood. He decided to photograph her for his medical records. This choice was not made lightly. Hartwell had observed that Catherine seemed to appear differently depending on who saw her and when. Some staff described her as a normal-looking girl, perhaps a bit pale and thin, with nothing remarkable about her appearance. Others sensed something deeply unsettling, an indefinable quality in her that created discomfort and unease. Hartwell himself had experienced this odd variability. At times, Catherine seemed entirely like what she was, a 9-year-old girl, highly intelligent yet disturbed. At other moments, particularly during her episodes of rigidity or when she demonstrated her most extraordinary abilities, there was something about her that made him feel as though he was facing a being far older and more powerful than a human child. Hartwell hoped a photograph might capture her true appearance objectively, providing a consistent visual record that could be studied, analyzed, and compared over time. He also hoped it might reveal details about her condition not obvious during direct observation. Medical photography was still a relatively new practice in the 1870s, but it was gaining recognition as an important tool for documenting psychiatric cases. Several pioneering hospitals were using photographs to maintain visual records of patients, both for identification and to study correlations between physical traits and mental conditions. Dr. Hartwell reached out to James Thornton, a photographer specializing in medical portraits, who had experience working with psychiatric institutions in the Boston area. Thornton was known for his technical skill, professional discretion, and patience in working with patients in various mental and physical states. When Hartwell explained the nature of Catherine's case, Thornton initially reacted with scientific curiosity. He had photographed hundreds of psychiatric patients in his career and was familiar with unusual situations. Thornton agreed to conduct the photographic session under controlled conditions using equipment that would capture fine details of the subject's appearance. The session was set for the morning of June 15, 1871, exactly 15 months after Catherine's arrival at the hospital. Hartwell chose a Thursday morning because he had observed that Catherine was usually calmer and more cooperative early in the day. Thornton arrived at 9 a.m. carrying his large and heavy photographic gear, a large format camera, a sturdy tripod, glass plates for capturing images, and all the chemicals needed for on-site processing. He was prepared for the usual challenges such as agitation, lack of cooperation, or unpredictable behavior. When Thornton was led to Catherine's room, he immediately sensed something unusual about this session. The light in the room felt strange, even accounting for the position of the windows and the time of day. There was a subtle, almost shadowy quality to it that seemed to concentrate around Catherine, as if the natural light was bending or being absorbed in her presence. Catherine sat in her usual chair, wearing the hospital's simple gray cotton dress. She watched Thornton carefully as he set up, showing interest but without the typical curiosity of a child. Instead, she appeared to be assessing both the photographer and his equipment, with a knowledge that suggested prior experience with the process. During the 30 minutes of preparation, Catherine remained perfectly still and silent. Thornton observed that she seemed to instinctively know where to look and how to position herself before he gave any instructions, as though she understood the technical requirements of photography on a deep level. When Thornton finally made the camera ready, he asked Catherine to look directly at the lens. At that moment, something extraordinary occurred, an event that Thornton later described as the most disturbing experience of his entire career. As Catherine met his gaze, he felt an intense, almost tangible sensation pass through him. The room temperature dropped sharply, making him shiver involuntarily. More strangely, he felt as if he were not merely photographing Catherine, but interacting with something far larger and more complex that was somehow linked to her or moving through her. Thornton exposed the glass plate for approximately 15 seconds, the time required by photographic technology of the era. During that brief period, he maintained eye contact with Catherine and experienced the unsettling sensation that she was simultaneously photographing him. Once the exposure was complete, he immediately processed the plate in a makeshift laboratory set up in a nearby room. The development process at the time required careful handling of chemicals and precise timing. Thornton was confident in his skills, yet as he worked, he sensed something abnormal. The chemicals reacted in unexpected ways, forming unusual patterns and textures on the plate. Some areas developed quickly, while others stubbornly remained dark. When the photograph was finally developed, both Thornton and Hartwell were silent for several minutes, staring at what appeared before them. The image showed Catherine exactly as she had been seated in the room, wearing the same dress, in the same environment. The basic physical details were all correct, yet something about the photograph was profoundly disturbing. Catherine's eyes appeared to look directly at anyone observing the image, regardless of the angle. They held an impossible depth, as though multiple layers of something hidden were captured within them. Observers described the sensation of being drawn into those eyes if they stared too long. Her expression was equally unsettling, not entirely matching the expression she had during the session, yet not completely different either, as if the camera had recorded an aspect of her presence normally invisible. Further examination revealed even stranger anomalies. Shadows appeared in the photograph that did not correspond to any known light sources in the room, and faint, indistinct shapes seemed to move at the edges of the image, suggesting other presences captured alongside Catherine. Her photograph quickly became an object of fascination and debate among the medical staff at Danvers Hospital. Hartwell convened a meeting of the senior physicians to examine the image and discuss its implications. Dr. William Foster, the hospital's second-most senior physician, initially suggested that the anomalies were due to technical defects in either the equipment or the chemical process, arguing that the strange lighting in Catherine's room might have caused distortions. This theory was soon rejected when Thornton returned to take control photographs using the same equipment, chemicals, and room. The resulting images appeared completely normal, without any of the unusual features present in Catherine's photograph. Dr. Margaret Sinclair, one of the few female psychiatrists of the time, proposed a more radical idea. She speculated that Catherine might have an extremely rare neurological condition affecting not only her mind, but also her physical interaction with the environment. Sinclair had read European reports of patients who exhibited apparent telekinetic abilities during severe psychotic episodes. This explanation gained credibility when staff reviewed all documented phenomena associated with Catherine: objects moving without contact, sudden temperature changes, and effects on plants and other people. Sinclair argued that some unknown neurological condition might generate unusual bioelectric fields capable of producing these effects. Dr. Hartwell, though intrigued, remained scientifically cautious. He proposed controlled experiments to test the possibility that Catherine was producing measurable physical energy. These experiments included precise measurements of temperature, magnetic fields, and attempts to photograph supposed energy fields using experimental techniques. The debate over Catherine's case intensified when copies of her photograph were sent to experts in Boston, New York, and Europe, reaching the forefront of psychiatric research.